just because I will have a problem. Are we recording?
We are.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna go on record with that.
just missed it. So,
Mahmoud likes his
you
Crystal
wanna-
Light.
Oh God, there we go.
There's nothing wrong with Crystal Light.
Cut it off right at 0.
Yep.
Hey, I know there's a lot of people in the world who think Fresca is disgusting, and I love Fresca.
So Fresca is amazing, and then I got this because one day there wasn't Fresca. This is the HEB brand.
Oh, okay.
It's the same.
Breeze.
It's a little. I'm gonna say it's a little bit better than Fresca.
I mean, it's from
Not
HEB.
sponsored.
I believe that.
Shots fired.
Sponsor this man, HEB.
For anybody who listens to this and doesn't live in Texas, we have the
Ye-
best grocery store ever.
And you don't know what we're talking about.
Yeah, you have no idea what we're talking about. But
Couldn't
all right,
find it.
gentlemen. We are talking today, kind of wrapping up team quarterfinals and previewing individual quarterfinals, which will start next Wednesday. We have Coach Brady on, who participated in team quarterfinals with CrossFit Kima down here in Houston, greater Houston area. Houston for everybody who doesn't live here.
Houston adjacent.
Yeah, part of the Houston metropolitan area, basically still.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people have given their thoughts on the internet, and I definitely want to review team quarterfinals. We can talk, about our opinions on that stuff. And then when we get to the individual quarterfinals, I think we can give our potential guesses, but I would like to keep this refrained from being completely negative Nancy's, because that does not actually serve athletes. And I think yelling at the sky and setting that as an example for athletes is detrimental to their progress. So just preface that. I know we all have strong opinions on things, but let's try to keep it helpful, especially when we get to the individual quarterfinals. So Brady, just take it away, man. What did you think?
Man, I was thinking this year felt like more like a team qualifier. Like I never felt alone as to where we've always had like relays and one person working at a time, stuff like that. And so I feel like it was more team driven than ever before. I thought that was really good. Me being such a lifter first, it was sad to not see an Olympic lift in halfway through the season. You have to make it to semifinals before you get to touch an Olympic lift. We had shoulder overheads. That was the biggest Olympic lift, I guess you could say. But other than that, I really enjoyed the team qualifiers, like doing the workouts. There's a few things that I'll talk about later. But what did you think of them, Triston?
I think they were fine to get people to the next stage. I would have liked to see a little bit more robustness of movements tested. As a programmer, I see both sides of the conversation in terms of increasing the difficulty of movements we tested in a previous stage for this stage. And then I also see the side that says, well, we already did that. Why are we doing it again, but slightly harder? I do think my overwhelming thought would be I agree. Not that I think there should have been a super heavy Olympic lifting variation, but we have not cycled a snatch. We have not cycled a clean and jerk. We have not cycled a power clean, a squat clean, anything of that nature this far through the season. And it is just a little different. My own personal opinion on that is I would say it is a gap in programming, as higher volume Olympic lifting is something that is very CrossFit. But overall, I liked the team cohesion requirements of them. I think there could have been a little more separation still in some slight adjustments to the programming, but they were fine. Like, I think they did the job. I think they got the right teams to the next stage, and I would say I'm very interested now to see what they program at semifinals with what they have tested and have not tested. What about you, Mahmoud?
I agree. I'm gonna resort to. I think they were fine. I think they were um, sufficient to filter most of the teams that needed to get to that next stage. I'm gonna say they were not particularly fun, which doesn't have to be, right? Like
Right.
there wasn't handstand walks, there wasn't the fun stuff that you want to watch, right?
Mhm.
This was you still have to be very fit, you still have to grind, and there wasn't like the glorious moment of oh we hit a PL
Mhm.
or whatever, or like heavy 275 but move faster, right? Like last year. But
Right.
again, like is it necessary? I think what they did was fine. It was not as attractive to watch, maybe, but also we've talked about how this year is kind of the hardest year to program so far, given the amount of, well, not for teams maybe,
Not for
but
team.
Yeah.
well, teams are less, 10 less teams, correct? Going forward?
10
Uh,
less teams going forward. Yeah.
Yeah.
into the semifinals, yes, but that's what I was thinking. To lean on what you're saying, it's like they cut out the GHD, they cut out the handstand walks, they cut out the rope climb this year, and that's been in the last, I think, three or ever since quarterfinals was a thing for teams. All those
Right.
movements have been out and been present, and
And I remember talking about quarterfinals with a friend of mine, and we talked about like how CrossFit wants to make it accessible with minimal like um, equipment. But at the end of the day, if you have minimal equipment, you won't have a team, right?
mhm.
You will not do a team workout in class with teams of four, right? So it
Right.
shouldn't apply to that. So I kind of like I liked what I didn't hate what I saw. I wished for more pizzazz, I guess, but
Mhm.
I can't say that oh those were not good workouts to be testing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
Like
One of
I would
the
have loved to see like progressive, like same workouts but progress your lifts every round, or more gymnastics every round. Like start with skipping, go to strict, go to wall. Like that would have been fun. But that being said, it didn't necessarily make or break the workout or make or break the test.
Yeah.
it was I look at it like, okay, what was the separator in workout one? It was the ring muscle ups.
Right.
What was the separator in two? It really depended on your team build. Like if you were strong, then it was all toes to bar and grip.
Yep.
If you were, if you're very gymnasty and not very strong, then it could have been the dumbbell. But 70-pound dumbbell for 100 snatches shouldn't be too big of a deal. So I would still say more leaning on the grip and gymnastic limiter. The third workout was probably all handstand push-up cycle rate. If your team could do it in 1 to 2 to 3 quick sets, you're going sub 18. If you're falling into that 4 or 5 sets, you're going 18,
Mhm.
18 plus. And then on the last one, it was just a barbell limiter. So that was the only one that I felt wasn't limited by your gymnastic capacity or cycle speed. I would like to see different barriers, not just
Sure.
three in one.
I'll probably also say like the snatch workout, the dumbbell snatch and the toes to bar had some sort of heart rate threshold as well. Like we've
Hmm.
all seen the open workout with the snatch. Like everybody can do that volume, but how fast can you do that volume? Right? 70 pound for or 50 pounds for quarterfinals athletes should not be a problem. But then can you do those 103 sets? Can you do them in 2 sets? Can you do them in, like what's that? And then the other thing that I did like, and what I think I'm gonna touch upon it moving forward, like the amount of synchro made those work out way more difficult than they look. And
Hmm.
like that's why I like if I was looking at a post earlier, I think it was morning chalk up or barbell spin, I'm not really sure, but it was talking about how like the pattern has been between quarterfinals, teams, and individual. And I think if it's an identical copy or a crossover to the individual, it would not be good tests. Removing the synchro from these workouts will alter the effectiveness of the tests.
I would agree with that. I think um, I definitely enjoyed the amount of synchro requirements. Anybody who's done team workouts I've written, especially at a high level, knows I'm a big fan of basically making you do individual workouts together.
Hmm.
um, And I think that is, one of the best ways to test team capacity and teamwork. I would have liked to, going back to what Brady said, seen the separators be a tad more substantial rather than just pure cycle speed, especially in an online format that starts to punish taller athletes significantly. Obviously, it's hard to make a perfect test, especially with 4 tests, 4 people, this, that, and the other. So there's some things that I would probably have done differently, but I'm sure if you asked 10 people at CrossFit HQ to program it, there's some things they all would have done differently as well, right?
I would have said it would have been easy to program a part B, especially like on the snatch workout.
Mm-hmm.
You could have done like a part B maximum reps for like whether it's a max reps at a certain time or a maximum weight for front squats, something like that, right? Or like something that is not hinging, but like it wouldn't have been an impossible task given like the extension of time, the 6 days window, and how they could have added that like limiter of the barbell being a limiter in more than just one workout.
Yeah.
In a different way.
So I think 2 things that I want to touch on before we move on to individual, and I want to keep it moving along because I know Brady has some stuff to do this morning, is one, the penalties. So I think this is worth having a small conversation about. For those people who haven't been watching the leaderboard, there have been massive penalties. Especially out here in the West. I haven't looked as in-depth in the East at the penalties that have been dished out. But what is your guys' overall thoughts on that? Mahmoud, I don't know I know you're relatively aware, but there have been some hefty penalties given out and lots of them relative to what we saw last year.
I'm gonna start with the even like disqualification of some teams.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, but I don't disagree with CrossFit at this point. The rules are in the rule book. You don't do it. I'm sorry. Like, especially like some teams are. I'm just gonna explain why some teams are disqualified real quick. Like some of the members that are on the team. So when you register as a team, let's say you put your whole gym in one team, it doesn't stop you from qualifying for having people doing your workout outside of in the open, outside of the gym. But it is a requirement for people competing or representing that team in quarterfinals that they all have all open workouts submitted in that gym.
Mm-hmm.
That is the only requirement. We went from having to train together all year to having to do like the only requirement is just do all the workouts in that gym.
Mm-hmm.
So if you didn't read the rule book, or if something happened, or even if you read the rule book and one athlete had to do something, you could have replaced that athlete. I'm not saying it's an easy task, but if life happens and he had to go or she had to do it outside of the gym, don't disqualify yourself. Still compete in quarterfinals with another athlete.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't disagree with CrossFit on applying the rule, even though for some cases it sounds like it was unintentional. But I would also unintentional and ignorance are kind of on the same, or not ignorance, sorry, like bliss, right? Like not seeing or not reading the rule book.
Yeah. Yeah.
But on the point of giving penalties for performance, I'm a big fan of actually seeing the videos. Always been a big fan, and I've always doubted that people do that. And the fact that they are being given, as long as they are fair, and I'm sure you've told me some people have gotten their appeals accepted.
Mm-hmm.
So as long as they are fair, and that shows me that they're actually doing a better job at vetting those videos, and we're gonna stop having those people just who like cruise through the workouts and put some the ridiculous times, get through or pass through without being vetted.
Right.
So I'm all for it.
What do you think, Brady? I know you have strong opinions on this.
Yeah, no. Even me, for my team, I wish every video was judged hard. That way we know what our movement is. And we know for previous years that, oh, this was fine. We could always do this each and every year and be fine. But
Right.
now it's like, it seemed like only one video got reviewed, and that was the muscle up video. People are getting dinged on the minor penalties for like the burpees and the squats, major penalties for the muscle ups. And when we're talking major, we're talking 20 reps. I think the lowest or the most I've seen a team move is like 7 spots. I think both teams that I know of personally who got hit with the major moved about 7 spots down the leaderboard. So if you're not inside the top 20,
You're in trouble.
now you're stressing. Yeah, exactly. And yeah. And so just watching one of the 4 videos, I don't think that's a fair thing to do. Don't get me wrong. I'm glad they're watching one, but I do think they should watch all of them because now it's like, oh, so if I guess correctly,
right,
I can do the standards great. And then on the other ones, I can skate the standard, be as close as I can to the line and, be gray, not black or white. There's good, there's bad, and we're trying to eliminate the gray. And that's what the online qualifier is best at, is creating gray standards.
Yeah, I think that's well put. I agree. I wish every video could be reviewed. Obviously, I think they've approached the penalties this year with a much higher level of scrutiny than in the past. And, in the rule book, it says we're going to review one video. And if we penalize you, we will then decide whether or not to look at your other videos. I think the cat's kind of out of the bag at this point that they didn't do that. But if you're going to say you're only going to do one, then I'm okay with you really digging into it. Obviously, there's still the inconsistency that you brought up with if you just get lucky and that's the one video you really hold to the standard,
Mm-hmm.
I do think it is time for CrossFit potentially to reevaluate how they penalize. There's at least one video of a team that is in a qualifying position for the West that I have seen that one of their teammates, I don't think more than one of their ring muscle ups basically counted per the standard. And that team received a major penalty, but they are still within the top 30. And to me, that's a kind of a no-go. So there are, I think, errors or issues within the penalizing standard that you can have a egregious video and still be in the qualifying position for semifinals. And I think that has some issue. I do think it is an improvement from what we have all been talking about for the last 2 years, where there's just been a general lack, it seemed, of video review.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's better, but not perfect.
I will say this, on the scorecards during like the movement briefings, they say penalties, not starting facing away from your barbell, XYZ. Right. They give you a few little nuanced things that I've never seen before that say, hey, you're going to get a penalty if you do this.
Right.
And so that was really good for them to add to those score sheets to kind of give us coaches and athletes a little bit more heads up, like, oh, this is exactly what they're looking for.
Right.
I do think a camera angle would be best. Like, just even put it in text. You don't have to show me a floor plan. Just say, we want to see the side of the ring muscle up.
Yeah.
We want to see 3/4 view of your burpees and front squats.
Well, and that's in the rule book, in the best practices for video review section. It's one of the appendices.
Yeah.
And again, that comes down to the athletes to read that section and to read the rule book thoroughly. But I don't disagree. Putting that on the scorecard would potentially be helpful.
Yeah.
I do think this is an advantage for people who are going individual now. I think it's a good kind of shot across the bow of you better be holding the standard.
Especially when only 40 go.
And you better be, since there is no floor plans, making sure that camera's in the right spot to show the standard. I mean, everybody knows your camera height can make your squat depth look good or bad. Your camera angle can make your lockout on muscle ups look different, all those kind of things. So I think given the flexibility we now have with looser floor plans and just kind of minimum standards, I know when Indy quarterfinals come around next week, I'm going to be doing a lot of testing with cameras. Like, hey, do an air squat. Hey, do an air squat. Hey, do a burpee. Hey, do a muscle up. Like, where is the best way for me to put this so that they're getting a true representation and still adhering to what they're looking for in terms of like a 3/4 angle and things like that. So
yeah, 2 cameras, got to do it.
definitely 2 cameras. All right, so let's move on. I want to ask you guys, do you think the individual quarterfinals tests are going to be very similar to what the teams had, or do you think they're going to be different movements, etc.? Go ahead, Brady.
Sorry,
I'm gonna have Brady go first. Sorry, Mahmoud.
Okay.
I definitely think they're going to be similar. I don't think you can go apples to apples. Like I said, if they run these workouts as an individual, I don't know. I definitely think it's going to be similar with slight tweaks because the top 25% teams is way different than the top 25% individual, just like the skill spectrum. And so I think they're going to start off easier, like the wall walk, handstand push-up progression last open. I think that was a great workout. That could be done again, maybe without the time barrier, so everybody can play a little bit longer. But I think it's definitely going to be ascending difficulty, and not just blatant ring muscle ups right from the go.
What do you think, Mahmoud?
Yeah, I mean, again, I think there will be some similarity in the movements potentially, but I don't think that the rep schemes will hold. Again, as I said, like without the synchro, those rep schemes don't really make a ton of sense for individual athletes. I would hope that they potentially have more skills. Again, that is not something that to be guaranteed, given that their message this year was basically, hey, you should not rely on your skills to prove your fitness. So
yeah, I mean, skills still pay the bills, but it's definitely a little bit more anchored by your capacity, and your fitness. I think I would hope we see a little bit more robustness to equipment potentially, and loading, skill complexity, things like that. And my reasoning for that is, as the West, as an example, there was only 60 teams that registered. And we went from 60 to 30, right? For the individuals, we're going from what, 10,000?
I mean, there's 9,000 something invited, so.
So for me, we're trimming the field a lot more, and there's a lot more outliers who potentially made it through, things like that. So that to me is why I would love to see a little more variance, robustness, different movements, potentially ascending loading, etc., relative to what we saw in the teams. I think you could use the team workouts as like a baseline and make adjustments and come up with 4 events, 5 scores that are really well-rounded. There's obviously some things I would do differently, but I also, historically looking back, the teams and the individuals are not usually a 1-to-1. So I think, if you look historically, we could see some differences as well.
The only thing I fear about like the broader equipment is that we are allowing 15% more in. I know back when I used to live in Amarillo, it was really hard to get to a 15-foot rope climb. Only one gym in town had it.
Yeah.
And luckily they allowed me to go and compete in there. So rope climbs are really tough to do. 25-foot floor space. Like
JCs.
I said, are they going to be that rough on affiliates during quarterfinals?
I don't think so.
I don't either.
And walks.
I don't think we're gonna see any of those movements. The only thing that we can see is complicated handstand push-ups. That's the only thing that I can see happening. And like potentially like more rig work, like bar muscle ups or chest to bar.
Yeah.
The other thing too is they've came out and said, these workouts can be performed in a 1-hour affiliate class.
Yeah.
Which limits your equipment dramatically.
Yeah.
Right.
Like it's not even about if you have them or not. Do you have them for 20 people?
Right. Right. So
one other thing I like to say is this one felt more like an online qualifier versus a competition. In the last 2 years, it felt very much more competition-esque with those higher skill movements of like the GHG, the rope climb, the handstand walks. This year, it definitely felt like, oh, we're doing the open plus now.
Yeah.
Yeah, the harder open.
Open and a half.
Also, probably a certain amount of that is the time domain that you had to do the workouts, right? Most online qualifiers are like 2 weeks.
Exactly.
And,
Yeah.
6 days basically for
Oh, it
these
was an eternity.
workouts.
We started on Thursday and still didn't want a day.
Yeah.
It was the volume was much lower. I would say that, but yeah, that's one thing I would like to change. Like, let's start Thursday. Release workouts on Thursday. If your team is traveling in or can't get off work, there's no reason why you can't do 2 workouts Saturday, Friday, or Friday, Saturday, 2 workouts on Sunday. So. And that's what you're gonna have to do at semifinals. So if you're complaining about it now, why are you trying to go to where you have to travel to do it? You're supposed to be at your hometown affiliate,
Yeah.
and you're complaining about a weekend comp.
Yeah.
So,
I think something we didn't touch on too much was redos. And I know, the teams I coached did a couple of redos. I know you guys did a couple of redos. Yeah, you did one. I don't know of any team that qualified that didn't redo any. I'm sure there might be one out there. But I think going back, referencing kind of previewing individual quarterfinals, the margins are going to be so thin. I just don't see a way, if you're not a top 10 games athlete, where you are one and doneing these workouts. Maybe you don't redo all of them, but it's just going to be so thin for the top 40.
do you think
Especially if there's no significant limiter or
that's what I was
separation.
thinking? If you put like a specialist workout in, to where somebody with a weightlifting background could shake up and move in front of a person who went to the games last year. Do you think that would really? Do you think that's going to stay away from more of the like single modality tests, or like, hey, this is your like the ring muscle up being your only score?
I hope so. I think it's okay to have a certain modality in a workout start to be what separates people, as long as it's with a backdrop of fitness right now. I think workouts in that kind of structure would be the best way to proceed. With this being, kind of coined the open plus at this point, to me, the best kind of workouts we could see would be some of the more intense or elaborate open workouts of the past. 16-2, 17-3, 18-1, the snatch win last year, even something like 20.5 with the ring muscle up wall ball row, like that kind of volume. I don't think they should do a choose your own adventure by any means, but something where one of those movements is going to separate, and that's okay, but you still have to be very fit to do it well, would be what I would like to see. I think we should stay as far away from anything single modality as possible, especially since we've opened up. I think Mahmoud and I discussed this on the last podcast. I know people who made quarterfinals who cannot do a ring muscle up, but can clean and jerk almost 400 pounds. And I also know people on the inverse side who cannot clean and jerk much more than 225 and can do 25 ring muscle ups unbroken. So
And not unbroken.
But I mean, so there's outliers that have made it through in every one of the 3 domains you wanted to pick, right? Like there are people who are extremely skill limited and extremely strength limited who just have filthy engines, right? And I think we need to do a really good job with the programming to not let those outliers impact the leaderboard too much. And the people who go to semifinals are very well-rounded CrossFitters who are good at everything.
Yeah.
And that's a tall ask.
I would like to look at last year's leaderboard and see what the average finish was. Because there's so many more people in, like I feel like that average finish may drop way back.
Yeah.
You know?
I would think so.
So it'd be very interesting to see.
So go ahead, Mahmoud.
I was gonna say one thing that I would request is this quarterfinal, the team quarterfinal, include 40% of the movements that showed up in the, or 40% of the movements that showed up quarterfinals have showed up in the open already.
Mm-hmm.
I would love for that percent to drop a little bit for individuals.
Yeah, I agree.
Like there are other movements.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of other movements that we haven't done or tested and things like that. So, what would you say? So, okay, team quarterfinals is done. You know, those people are entering their off season or their postseason rather, or they're taking some downtime before they start semifinals prep. What would you guys say? One to two pieces of advice for individuals doing individual quarterfinals this year. Let's do one piece of advice for people who are not trying to qualify for semifinals and one piece of advice for people who are trying to punch into the top 40.
For the people who aren't trying to qualify for semifinals, pay to play. You pay to run a 5K. I think, especially if this is your very first year, you should put yourself on that leaderboard. Pay your entry fee, do the competition, and do it well. Have fun. Test it out this first year. I really recommend that because there's no better marketer than the CrossFit Open and quarterfinals. I do believe in that, especially if you're going to try and make it back next year. For those people who are going for those top 40, be prepared for a battle. It's going to be crazy. I think you're going to, especially if you're not a top 20 athlete, in live competition, I definitely think you're going to have to redo probably 2 to 3 workouts, if not all 4. And a major penalty, unless you're, like I said, in that top 20, you're probably going to fall out with a major penalty. So clean those reps up, video 5 of each reps before you get started. It's not going to destroy your workout.
Yeah.
Don't lose it because of a non-fitness related thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say for people who are not trying to qualify, you've worked hard for this, almost too hard to not do it.
Mm-hmm.
And almost too hard to, I'm going to talk more towards affiliate members who are following affiliate programming. You should not wreck your body on Monday, Tuesday because the workout says so. Like you've worked so hard to just throw it in the last minute. So it's okay to kind of recover and take a couple days to just get ready for it. And once you get there, it's like you're trying to do it at this point. Like just go. And then for people who are trying to qualify, I'm gonna start by saying God bless you. And and I think it's gonna be harder than actually qualifying for the games from semifinals.
I wouldn't go that far, but
I mean, it's a much narrower funnel.
Yeah.
With much more people in it. So like one wrong move will cost you.
Yeah. I think for me, if you're a quarterfinal athlete who knows they're not trying to qualify for semifinals this year, I think you should do it with the mindset of this is what you do for fun. You have earned the right to be here. You have an opportunity to get more data on yourself with more tests against a slightly different field. And I think to approach it with the mindset of having fun and competing for the love of competing, for the love of the game. I would echo what Mahmoud said. Please don't do anything stupid Monday and Tuesday. And then I think for the athletes who are looking to qualify for semifinals, whether they should be expecting to do so based on their fitness in the past, or this is their first year trying to punch in. I think the best thing they could do is two small things that are closely related. One is block out the noise of the opinions of what the workouts are, what they should be, what they shouldn't be. When those workouts come out, that is your task. You need to go execute said task, whether you like it or not. It does not matter. It is a non-factor. And then you can have your opinions afterwards. If you can separate that, you will be in a much better headspace for the workouts. And the other thing slightly related to that is um, don't focus on anything but what you can do for that weekend. Don't focus on what your friend gets. Don't focus on what your former competitor gets. Stay focused on you, what you can do, how you can maximize the conversations you're hopefully having with a coach, and things like that. I do really agree with Brady, though. I think this is going to be a long 6 days, 5 days for redos and workout video review and seeing where you can improve and trying to find the margins. And I think there's even a lot of people who have made the CrossFit Games who are going to be having to find space in a workout to improve, because if there's no significant skill limiters or weight limiters, I mean, a lot of people are really fit. The Open showed us that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I think it'll be fun. I think it'll be interesting. I'm very obviously interested to see what the workouts are and see how things kind of shake out for individual quarterfinals. But I'm definitely getting excited for it as well. So
yeah.
All right, Mahmoud, closing thoughts, wrap up stuff. We did no housekeeping before this, so before we started talking, because I just pressed record on you.
We got the camp coming up on June 21st.
Yep.
It will be a very fun and essential camp if you are trying to either prepare for next Open or quarterfinal season, semifinal season. Quarterfinals. You will be done with semifinals this year, so if that's the end of your season, I would still suggest that you should attend that camp. And if you are one of those who like to do the late year qualifiers, so Wadapalooza, TFX, WOD Gods, East Battle of the East, whatever is in the east side of the country.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I would say come join us, learn how to train during that period of your training, learn how to not get injured during that period, learn how to eat, how to go about training and actually conceptualize and perceive training versus, oh, I'm just going to go to the gym and see what happens.
Yeah, this camp's going to be really educational based as well as, workouts and things like that. But I would really encourage people, while an off-season camp may not sound as sexy as a pre-quarterfinals, semifinals camp, I would argue that it's exponentially more beneficial.
Yeah,
So,
like this is an essential point in your year to
Yeah.
either mess it up or start too late or actually start on the right track.
Yep.
You're in season months. You're in competition season weeks.
Exactly. 100%.
Second is we are about to, well, first, thank you for ordering the varsity shirt, but we are about to hit you with another one.
Semifinals tees, yo.
Semifinals tees are about to drop, so exciting designs, and I'm already looking forward to buying mine.
Teaser. If you come to the camp, you might get a T-shirt.
Who knows?
Who knows?
What else? Off-season cycle is about to start after quarterfinals and or separation for the blog. So there's going to be some separation for people who made semifinals versus not. But for most of the blog followers, if you did not make semifinals, look forward to starting an off-season cycle. I'm looking forward to it. This is one of my favorite cycles of the year. It's just where you get to get better, a lot better. Um,
Yeah, we'll do a podcast kind of overviewing that as well after
Absolutely.
quarterfinals and everything dies down. I think I want to go into a little bit more the nuts and bolts of what we do in the off season as well in that podcast. So
Absolutely. I don't know. Did I forget anything?
I don't think so. I don't think so. I'm not gonna. I mean, we know Coach Brady's team's in a qualifying position. Madison on Coda Iron View, and then CrossFit Addict out in the East. They've been all validated and in a qualifying position. So super excited for them. And then Coach Carey, Team Man-Made, they have a team inside as well. And then they have a team right outside the line. So potentially they might make it into a qualifying position as well, which would be super exciting. But very proud of all the Ascend athletes who did team quarterfinals and crushed it. So
Absolutely.
Brady, how stoked are you for semis prep?
Dude, I'm pretty excited, man. Here we go. I get all my road clogs and GHGs I've been doing for quarterfinals will not go to waste.
Yeah. Fair enough.
It will not go to waste. All these strict head push-ups, the wall facing, I've been preparing for. We're ready for them now.
Yep. All right. Well, thank you for your time this morning, gentlemen. I will talk to you all a little bit later, and thanks for listening, everybody.
We'll see y'all.
Absolutely. Have a great day.